Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, talk radio is the immune system to the partisan, bias, political rhetoric attacking us on a daily basis. Get inoculated. The Joe Mangiacotti Show is your vaccine. Join me weekend mornings, 6 to 8.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877-DRIVE-ED. Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click LevantesAutoschool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. 877-DRIVE-ED.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
If you were to ask any retiree in a word, they would tell you that retirement is all about income. Income in retirement is a permission slip to enjoy life. Income provides the freedom to spend money each month knowing that more will arrive next month and the month after that. As important as it is to accumulate assets for your retirement, it's equally, if not more important, to maximize the income being generated from your assets. My name is Jerry Doherty, and my radio program, Making Money Last, has been heard right here on WCRN. Well, do you know if your retirement income is as high as it could be? Are you living off less than you should be? Well, I'd like to offer you a complimentary review to answer that very question. Simply call my office at 877-772-1776. I'm conveniently located right on Route 9 in Westboro. Again, my number is 877-772-1776. Let's increase your income today.
The following is a paid program. The opinions are those of the host and guests and not necessarily those of the station or its management.
You are about to undertake a 2-hour experience of eye-opening, mind-expanding, revealing common sense discussion for the common sense citizen. Strap yourself in, put your trays in the upright position, remove dentures and loose jewelry, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and come along for the ride. It is time for the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Powerhouse Station WCRN 830, and our affiliates, and streaming on the TuneIn app. It's Joe time, baby.
All right, folks, good morning, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show right here on AM 830 WCRN, and of course our affiliates. And don't forget that we are live streaming on TuneIn app. You just punch in WCRN, and you can take us anywhere on any of your devices, right? Phone, tablet. Stream it in your car. You can tell Alexa to play WCRN. She'll do that with no questions asked. We're also streaming live on Facebook, on my Facebook page, which is Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. There's a camera in the studio, but the important part is the audio is streaming there. So you can hear the show in multiple ways this morning. And you can always check out our past shows at JoeMShow.com, JoeMShow.com. We have a couple different websites to get there. Do you know that the YourRightTalk.com actually still is on there, folks, from the early days of Conservatively Speaking? Phone number to reach the studios, 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Reach in for two-way talk and conversation. You can text us as well. Our text line is up and running, 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Use it just like you would text anybody else in the world, and it appears on the screen here. If you can't text, but you have a device and you can email, if you actually email the same point, question, comment to Joe, to text Joe on the radio at gmail.com, it appears on the same screen. We're broadcasting from the Dropbox Middlesex Mattress Studios, and I'd like to welcome John and his family on board as new sponsors. That's Dropbox Middlesex Mattress, and they're located at 50 Main Street in Ashland. And I got to tell you, it's a great little setup. This is a true family business where John and his son and his family, they run it. You actually meet John. They keep hours, but you know what they'll do? They'll meet you when it's convenient for you. I was going to buy freshen up furniture and everything, and, of course, the bed's a very important item, right? We spend a third of our life on it. And I was going to buy the new mattress, and the power base from one of those big stores with tens of thousands of square feet of overhead, and they have movie theaters and all kinds. I mean, you look in there. I mean, how much do they have to sell just to keep the doors open? And then I met John, and I went and checked out his showroom down in Ashland. Real easy, great people down there. I ended up buying a better mattress, and the power base actually has massage and heat in it, and I paid less than half of what I was going to spend at the other place. So if it's time to freshen up the mattress, and it usually is, I mean, how many years have you been sleeping on the mattress you're on right now? I would say give John a call, Dropbox Middlesex Mattress, and we're in the Dropbox Middlesex Mattress Studios going forward. All right, 508-871-7000, as I said, to join the conversation. Good morning, Russ.
Good morning, Joe.
And last weekend, we were talking about your birthday, so how was the birthday? Are you still celebrating, or are you good?
I think I'm good. The celebration lasted for the weekend, where when we wrapped it up, my wife and my mother-in-law took me out to lunch. We went to Longhorn Steakhouse.
Oh, yeah.
In Marlboro.
Okay. Oh, in Marlboro. That's the one on Route 20, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Am I crossing that? Okay, it's Texas Longhouse that you go in and you can actually pick your steak out, right? Longhouse is more the traditional, okay, like Outback.
Outback, they put a little kick to it, and of course, sometimes you may have to remind them if you don't like the spice or don't like a lot of kick, you have to tell them so. But Longhorn was really good. I had steak tips that are really good, and I get made fun of for the way I like my steak whenever I have a steak.
Why? Do you like it so rare a veterinarian could bring it back, or?
No, I like it well done.
Oh, yeah, I would have to bust you a little bit. That is the worst way to eat a piece of steak, man. Come on. I will never forget, years ago, I went into Kent's Steakhouse in Framingham, and a lot of people listening right now probably know Kent's. I mean, it was a huge restaurant. Yeah, it was the same family with Kent's salad dressings, but they're just different entities today and so forth. But Kent's Steakhouse back in the day was the place in Metro West. A lot of politicians went there. A lot of business people went there. A lot of deals got made there. But I went in there one day, and I sat at the bar, and I ordered my steak, medium rare, but I like my fries crispy, right? So I said, well done on the fries. He misheard me. And he makes the order, and he ordered the steak well done. Well, this sent a ripple through Kerns because they knew me, and the chef knew that it was my order, and he questioned the bartender. And so when it came out well done, the bartender wouldn't put it down. He stood there and he goes, "Are you sure you really want it?" And I'm thinking, do I want my steak? Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure I want it. He goes, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, the chef really apprehensive about cooking it this way." I go, "Why?" "What did you do?" He goes, "Well done." I said, "The fries, man, the fries, not the steak." I'm like, no. To me, it's like eating leather. I don't know, Russ. I don't know if we can have you do an Out with Joe segment if you're going to eat your steak well done.
I'm sorry, but that's just the way that I have my steak.
That's right.
My father-in-law, he likes to bust my chops, so to speak, also because a friend of his also likes to have her steak well done.
Got it.
And it's like one side against the other, because I know my wife, I think she usually does like maybe medium well or something, like maybe a little pink in it or something like that.
Oh, my goodness.
Or something like that. But again, I like mine. I like mine well done.
We'll have to learn, you guys, man. All right, folks. How do you take your steak? 508-871-7000. All right, folks. So a lot to talk about. Obviously, we're gonna hit a few things this morning. We'll touch on the hypocrisy in the situation with Cuomo, the HR 1 bill. Let's not forget that in all of this confusion and stuff going on, there are a couple gun bills that went through. And, of course, we'll address Joe Biden's address Thursday night to the country regarding this relief package, which was very craftedly referred to, as COVID relief, COVID for the buildup. And you heard it here. You heard it on all of the outlets who actually tell you the truth and the plain scoop on what's going on, like here, Common Sense Conversation for the common sense citizen here. 9% of the bill actually directly dealt with COVID relief or COVID issues. The rest of it is pork and payoffs and patches for very poorly run states. So we'll get into that. But there was something that I had to share with you. I mean, this is another situation of, if you take a step back, what do we see? We're constantly being edited and told how we can speak and how we can think. Speech is only a reflection of our thoughts. When we see Piers Morgan say, I never thought that I would ever say the words or any words in defense of Piers Morgan. But here's a guy, on an incredibly popular morning show in Britain, and this Meghan Markle and Harry interview comes out, and all full disclosure, folks, I didn't watch it. Although I am very interested in the whole monarchy and the royal family and have been my entire life. My mother was an expert on the royal family, and there were literally books laying around the house on the royal family, and you couldn't help but read one eventually. I find it fascinating. I find the concept of parliamentarian, a democratic monarchy interesting, but there's a lot of pride in the royal family, and Meghan Markle came out with her story. Now, remember, folks, she's an actress. Actresses are, after all, highly paid professional liars. And Morgan doesn't buy her whole story, and with good reason. I mean, there's a foundation for that. Her saying that they actually got married 3 days before the $30 million wedding Grandmama put on for them in the garden is a complete fabrication. And that comes from the guy alleged to perform the ceremony. Never happened. So we know that, as the Queen put it, recollections might be off a little bit. So they go after this guy because he says, I don't believe her. They want to cancel him. He walked out on his own. Good for him. He put principle over the money and by the way, that show's probably going to tank without him on it. But that aside, for absolutely just expressing the fact that he doesn't believe her. He thinks she's lying. They want to crucify this guy, right? They got 40,000 comments and apparently 40,000 remarks online, in the chat box or whatever is a big thing over there. I mean, that's like a Tuesday morning here for most things that go on. But it caused a big disturbance. So we have this continuous assault on our speech. And it's only meant to narrow your thought. If you haven't read George Orwell's 1984, man, you have to go do it. The concept there, and it's not the government, it's society that's doing this. It's a small group of progressives who've decided that what is okay is only what they deem okay. That there's no room and there's no ability for an exchange of thoughts and ideas, much less room to allow a dissenting opinion in the same hemisphere as you. Then we have now this New York school. It's a private school in New York. It charges $57,000 a year to send your darling children to. Grace Church School put out a memo, 12 pages, by the way. And it instructs people to stop using certain terms that it considers to be outdated. So stick with me here, folks. And replace them with terms that are inclusive terminology. Inclusive terminology. It states, here is an example of some of the things that this memo at this $57,000 a year school says. That instead of saying boys and girls, guys and ladies, gentlemen, you need to say people, folks, friends, readers, mathematicians. And you, instead of sweetheart, honey, or any similar type pet name, this is verbatim, I'm quoting, child's name or child friend in the blue shirt. Can you feel your IQ point literally dropping as you're forced into this verbiage? Can you feel it? Instead of assuming gender based on stereotypes, people should respect. Now, this is so now you. Let me preface it. So now you can't make the assumption that a male in jeans and a polo shirt and sneakers is a guy. So instead of assuming gender based on stereotypes like dresses and polo shirts, people should, quote, respectfully ask how they identify in familiar establishing a culture of sharing, affirming pronouns in class. Now, this is something that has been going on for a couple of years in meetings. I've sat on several charity boards and community group boards and board of directors, and about a year and a half, 2 years ago, it started to become very norm that as you do the introductions at the table and you sit down to begin, and even if everybody knows there, you still do the, hi, I'm Joe, in whatever position or company you're there representing. And then you just simply give your pronouns, he, him, as calmly and casually as you would say good morning. So that's been already happening, is that we now have to declare, and in some cases, it's probably a good idea. Instead of, now this is something, guys, right? So this memo, 12 pages, put out by Grace Church School at $57,000 a year, is now telling their students and parents that instead of saying parents, well, first of all, instead of saying mom and dad, right? They want you to say grown-ups, folks, or family. They literally want to remove mom and dad from the vocabulary, from the vernacular, gone. It's like an episode of Coneheads, Parental Unit 1 and Parental Unit 2. They want you to do away with mom and dad. And instead of saying parents, you say grown-ups, or folks, or family, or guardians. Think about that. What does guardian mean? What does that represent? It's a little cold, right? Mom and dad, on some level, usually represents that blood connection, or if not blood, in an adoption situation, a very strong bond. A very strong bond. Guardian can be somebody a court appointed to make sure that you're eaten, fed, and housed. Because the thought process here is it's the greater good and that it's all for the government and the party and we belong to them. And even saying, and this is the kids are being told this, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, right? This is my husband, this is my wife, this is my boyfriend, girlfriend. No. Now they're instructing that the term spouse, partner, or significant other should be used. Why are we removing mom, dad, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend from our vocabulary? Instead of saying a boy can't marry a boy or a girl can't marry a girl, the memo says people can love and commit to whomever they please. It's their choice in who they marry. I'm okay with that. I'm never okay with being instructed what you're allowed to say. But if my son or my nieces or nephews ever said to me that they wanted to marry someone of the same gender, wouldn't faze me at all. As long as it's a good person and it makes them happy. It's the instruction. It's the rules, because every rule usually has consequences. Otherwise, there's no teeth to it. It goes on to say, if someone articulates sexual orientation is a choice rather than an identity, respond by saying who we love or attracted to is part of who we are. Instead of saying diverse minority, say person of color, marginalized identity population. Instead of asking what religion are you are supposed to say, are any religious faith traditions important to you? Instead of asking, what did you get for Christmas? What did you get for Easter? What did you get for Hanukkah? What did you get for your birthday? You ask, do you celebrate holidays? And instead of Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, you're supposed to say, have a great break. Now, how long before the breaks go away? See, this is the interesting things with this, folks, right? Because teachers in the teachers union, they don't want you to identify Christmas break as Christmas break. I mean, the only reason we have these breaks is because of Christ or Jesus. Easter, depending on these breaks that have been built into school years. See, they don't want to do away with the breaks. They want the time off with the pay and everything that goes with it. They just don't want you to be able to use the terminology that created the break in the first place. So the memo also states some of the following terms are outdated. Now, I don't know who decides on outdated stuff. But we all kind of learn to change our vocabulary as life goes along, right? You watch old episodes of, say, All in the Family, and you realize they're using terms that we don't use today. On another show, I did a whole segment on this Beverly, and I'm drawing a blank on the last name. It was really the first time that you saw a drag queen portrayed in TV in this way, and it was on All in the Family. When Archie's driving the cab, she passes out in the back seat. He helps her come back to, finds out it's actually a woman. But back in the 70s, the terms were very all over the place, right? Transvestite, crossdresser, drag queen. Some of these terms weren't out there. But you watched it back then, and they're even using terms, and they were using them correctly in 1977, but they're not used today. So now they're telling us that the outdated terms that we have to deal with today is like colorblind. No one is colorblind as it pertains to race. We see the skin tones of people and assumptions are made about how someone identifies racially. Now, colorblind isn't even used in that term, and if you use it in that text, people understand what you're saying. They say that Caucasian, the correct term is white. White is more accurate description of light-skinned people of European descent. Is it, though? Is it? Caucasian's pretty descriptive. I think we all know what it means. Diverse person or student, that's referring to a person of color. A person is not diverse. A group of people can be diverse. Traditional family. They consider this an outdated term. We actively try to undo notions of typical or normal family structure. Each family is unique. And real parents, a preferred term, is birth parents. Now, I got to tell you, in that case there, I have always said birth parents. I mean, I deal in my business with a lot of family cases, tracking down adopted people, adopted parents, family court, and so forth. And I commonly refer to birth parents, not real parents. That's a term that never sat with me anyway. But I do have an issue, man, with taking mom and dad off the checkerboard here, and parents, and husband and wife, to significant other and partner. And what's funny is the LGBTQ community, for decades, because they couldn't get married, right? So they identified their husbands and wives, or what they considered their husband and wives, as their partners and significant others. And they fought for years and years to be able to call their partner or significant other their husband or their wife. And now it's kind of getting reversed. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation on the Joe Mangiacotti Show from the Dropbox Middlesex Mattress Studios in Westborough, Massachusetts. Let's go to the phones. Mark in Worcester. Good morning, Mark. Thank you for holding on while I got through my my terminology memo there. You look marvelous. I think I can still say that, Mark.
Oh, you can still say that while I'm still alive.
You're going to be a good-looking corpse. Don't worry, Mark.
Thank you, sir. It makes me feel better you saying that.
Well,
okay?
Now he took a little pressure off.
All right. I heard you for the last 20 or 30 minutes. You're trying to figure out what's going on. If you want to know exactly what's going on, I recommend to you 3 books. I know you're a busy guy, but I want you to read 3 books, and everything will come into crystal clarity, okay? The first book is George Orwell's 1984. I'm sure you've heard of that book.
I've read it, yep.
The second book you should read is Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Okay? Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. And last but not least, H.G. Wells. I believe it was the last book he published before he died. The name of the book was The New World Order by H.G. Wells. He wrote another book called The Time Machine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You read those 3 books, especially the last one.
Yeah.
H.G. Wells, The New World Order.
Well, the Time Machine, Mark, is really symbolic of what's happening today, right? Because we do have the Eloids, right? And we've got the elite in Washington who really don't understand of the carnage and what it takes underneath for them to live the way they live, right? If you're inside that beltway, Mark, you don't really worry about money, and everybody lives in beautiful homes and they've got all kinds of sweetheart deals.
You're in the time machine.
Yep.
Those 3 books, those guys were prophets. And I believe they were all British. You look what's coming out of Britain. They're 4 or 5 years ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Socially, economically, than we are. So what you see happening in Britain is what's going to be happening here in 4 to 5 years at the most, because we're in a quickening, okay, to establish a new world order.
Yeah.
These 3 books, Orwell's 1984, Aldous Huxley, Brave New World, and H.G. Wells, it's a hard book to find. But go out of your way to find it.
I will do that.
New World Order.
Yeah.
And it'll encapsulate everything that you're talking about. It'll tell you these guys knew what was going to happen now. They knew it 80 years ago, 100 years ago. But they were telling you what was going to happen.
Absolutely. And there are some other books out there and some other people who have called this. And the thing is, what was interesting, Mark, in the last week or whatever, watching this Piers Morgan debacle happen and all of this and the royal family and the response from the Queen, is they were looking, their talking heads are looking at America saying, oh, the cancer culture is coming across the pond to us. And when they're saying that, I'm saying, if I remember correctly, there's been a lot of cancer culture and crazy stuff happening over there. They've put Winston Churchill and several of their other statues and monuments into boxes because they knew that what was going to happen. So they didn't want Winston Churchill's statue being torn down in the middle of the square. So his
statue has been sprayed with graffiti.
Yep.
And vandalized. The statue of Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
In Britain.
Yeah.
The man who saved Britain.
Who fought the Nazis.
Vandalizing it every week. They've got to clean it up.
It's sad. It's sad stuff. Mark, unfortunately, we are against the clock. The break time is here. Always a great call as usual. Hey, Scott in Florida, I'm sorry, man. If you can just hold on, we'll grab you on the other side of the break. Time is time. Powerful guy here, but I can't control that. All right, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti here, and you might have picked up on the fact that I've recently moved and was taking the time to purge the clutter and freshen up some of the furniture and decor. And there is no better item to freshen up than your bed. That's right, your bed is the most important piece of furniture you have. After all, you spend more than a third of your life on it. I checked out the huge, once family-owned stores with tens of thousands of square feet of showroom and warehouses and movie theaters and food courts and shows and the overhead that goes with them. But then I discovered a true family-owned shop. John Rosenfeld and his son have a small showroom and warehouse right in Metro West, 50 Main Street, Ashland. John and his family are actually there in person. They do keep hours, but will meet you by appointment. That's right. John will meet you when it's convenient for you. I first bought a mattress from the big store the brothers used to own and a power base that moved the head and feet, but then I met John and checked out his showroom at 50 Main Street in Ashland and online at boxdropmiddlesex.com and ended up with a better mattress and power base that also heats and massages, all for less than half of what I was going to spend at the other place. Box Drop is a discount mattress store, and John specializes in clearance and closeouts and buys directly from the manufacturer with low overhead and just family employees, passing the savings on to you, and you can see it reflected in the price every day. Click boxdropmiddlesex.com or call John on his cell. This is his cell number, 508-579-9309. That's 508-579-9309. And find John on Facebook at Box Drop Middlesex. John loves referrals, and this is the best referral I've given so far this year. Dropboxmiddlesex.com.
This is Sean Burke, President of the Licensed Private Detectives Association of Massachusetts, asking you to visit us at lpdam.org when you think you need a private investigator. Don't let your emotions negatively affect your future. Get your answers through a Massachusetts licensed private investigator. Get the facts without risking your credibility by unknowingly committing a criminal offense. You need a license to perform investigations in Massachusetts. What are some types of work that requires a license? Any type of surveillance, interviewing someone for a third party, background and asset checks are just a few examples. For more on this, visit us at lpdm.org and tune into AM 830 WCRN Sunday mornings at 7:30 for case files from the LPDM or anytime at lpdmcasefiles.com.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877 Drive Ed.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click levantesautoschool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. Call 877 Drive Ed.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Bam, bam, on that 15.
Out with Joe. You're listening to Out with Joe. Out with Joe.
Slap some bacon on a biscuit, let's go.
Oh, this is the worst looking hat I ever saw. Well, you buy a hat like this, I'll bet you get a free bowl of soup, huh?
Welcome to this edition of Out with Joe, brought to you by Nothing But Cakes in White City Plaza, Shrewsbury. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. This week we thought we'd take a look at how much to tip your delivery driver during coronavirus. Extreme situations call for extreme tipping. It's the right thing to do. Tipping is an unavoidable part of U.S. culture at any time. But as we rely more on food, grocery, and restaurant delivery during the coronavirus outbreak, the amount you should be tipping is climbing. Delivery drivers put themselves at greater risk of exposure to the COVID-19 disease that so far resulted in over 362,000 confirmed cases in the U.S. alone, so that you don't have to go outdoors. They're also often collecting minimum wage without hazard pay. The suggested amount is to tip at least 20% on all takeout and delivery orders, or more to show appreciation at a time when the unemployment rate has spiked to reach an all-time high in the U.S. So how much to tip at restaurants and bars in general? Well, let's look at that first. The good news is that you're not expected to tip the same amount at a 5-star restaurant as you would when ordering at the counter. But tips are acceptable, appreciated, and even expected for a person who serves you and cleans up when you're done. The same goes for delivery and carryout. So in general, coffee shop baristas, $1 or so per drink, more more for complicated orders like half-calf, no-fat soy latte with light foam and extra shot, whatever that means, or less for simple orders, hot water in a tea bag. Bartenders, $1 to $2 per drink. More for mixed drinks, less for drafts, or 20% if you're running a tab. Dine-in restaurant service, about 20%, or more for outstanding service. Buffet service, 10 to 15%, depending on how many plates, forks, and refills you go through. Fast casual counter service, up to $1 for taking your order. $2 to $5 if they bus your table or deliver your food. Restaurant carryout service, 10% more for large, complicated orders, such as baby shower or office party. Food delivery drivers, 10% or up to 20% or more during hazardous road conditions or special circumstances, such as holidays or big game night. But the last two, restaurant carryout service and food delivery drivers, it is during the COVID-19 pandemic, and they are not getting hazardous pay. And don't forget that the minimum wage for these type of employees are far less than the standard minimum wage in any given state. Other things to keep in mind when tipping: cash is preferable to credit, but giving a credit card tip is better than going short on cash. It's rude to leave intentionally small tip, like a handful of change after a $50 meal. If you have exceptionally poor service, talk to the manager. Leaving no tip might be appropriate in extreme cases. The likelihood that a server will spit into your food is relatively low, so we don't recommend tipping solely to avoid that type of behavior. Rather, tip to acknowledge the work or service that has been done. For more on dining, entertainment, and news, click outwithjoe.com and follow us on social media at OutWithJoe. Out with Joe has been brought to you by Nothing Bundt Cakes in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury, on Facebook at Nothing Bundt Cakes Shrewsbury. Have you heard of the hottest new bakery around? I know you heard about it right here. My friend Al has opened Nothing Bundt Cake in the White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. Nothing Bundt Cake is a bakery chain and is locally owned and operated by my friend Al. They have bundt cakes ranging from bite-sized to tiered, plus platters, candles, and cards. For any occasion, function, or just to have around the house or office, stop by and check them out. Everything is baked from scratch and on site. Nothing beats a sweet surprise. And until you try one of Al's bundt cakes, you haven't tried a real bundt cake. Stop by and ask for Al. Tell him Joe told you to stop by. 98 Boston Turnpike, White City Plaza, near Planet Fitness, Shrewsbury, and on Facebook as well, Nothing Bundt Cake Shrewsbury.
To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Joe Mangiacotti.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the first hour of the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Here on AM 830 WCRN, our affiliate stations, as well as live streaming on TuneIn app. Just punch in WCRN, take us anywhere on your devices. Tell Alexa to play WCRN, she can do that. And we're also streaming on my Facebook page, and that's Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I. Matter of fact, Joe Mangi Show is the tag for all the social media, right? Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Rumble, and Parler, who's back up and running in at least a limited capacity there. So that's how you can listen to it. There's a camera in the studio, but what's important is the audio is streaming, so there's many ways to listen to the show, and thank you for joining us early on these weekend mornings. Year after year, we've been here, and I hope that we serve some purpose here. It is the People's Microphone, and this is Common Sense, conservative talk for the common sense citizen. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And I wanted to move into some hypocrisy with the governor of the great state of New York, but I do need to go to the phones. People have been waiting patiently, including Scott in Florida. Good morning, Scott, and thanks for holding on, man. I know it's early in the morning, but I appreciate the fact that you stuck through it here.
Good morning, Mr. Mangiacotti. How are you?
I am well, given all things. The old Bell's palsy's clearing up, thank goodness.
Good.
Yeah. What's happening?
I'm listening to what you're saying, and it's if it wasn't so pathetic, I would be laughing. But I know that this is not a joke. This is serious. I just to show you how ludicrous. While you were, I was waiting. I jotted down some terms to make fun of this new world order, this nut house that we live in. Let's call a janitor a sanitation engineer. You can't call it nursing home anymore. Let's call it octogenarian dwelling. Can't call it mental institution anymore, although these people definitely deserve to be put in one, committed. Let's call it a mentally challenged dwelling.
Or we could call it Congress.
Congress is a giant outhouse. I'm going to tell you something, Mr. Mangiacotti. The insane are leading the American people. Just a few more ditties. Homosexual, same gender being. Did you hear that idiot when a month ago in Congress he was the chaplain and he said amen or a and a woman? Did you hear him say that?
Yeah, because amen has absolutely nothing to do with gender. It's Latin, and it means I think it means with all or grace to all or something. It has nothing to do with gender. And this is what I'm saying. It's like the more, Scott, the more that these people speak, you can feel your IQ points dropping. If you are directed to, if we're forced to think in these terms, and this is the entire point behind Orwell's 1984. I know Mark told me to go get the book, but it was required reading in my day in school, and I've read it since then. Again, it's if you limit speech and control speech, you limit and control thought, right? So things become something is good or it's ungood. Right, they want to limit our ability to even say, "Oh, that was disgusting. That's gross. That's no, good, ungood." We limit thought. We control speech, therefore controlling thought. And this is what's happening. And if you stray from what not society as a whole determines is acceptable speech, but what a few progressive nut jobs, as far as I'm concerned, decides what's okay and acceptable. And this is the thing, right? What they decide. I mean, look at Piers Morgan. I never thought I'd be defending this guy as harsh as I am, but he said, I don't believe her. I think that she's lying. And after the hubbub, he came back and said, well, I reconsidered and thought about it, and I still think she's lying. And they want to crucify the guy for simply having an opinion that they don't like. And this is just a microcosm of the whole picture here. Right? And we even, in our own House of Representatives, what we talked about here on the show a month or so ago, right? They wanted to change the terminologies in bills as well in the United States House of Representatives. What is so outdated about mom and dad, husband and wife?
There's nothing. It's just, listen, your listeners that are listening out there, there's things they can do to fight back. That's the two words they need to remember, fight back. Number one, do not take the vaccine. This is all about brainwashing. People have died from taking this vaccine. Don't take it. And also, we need to speak up and push back because they're destroying our First and Second Amendment rights. Mr. Mangiacotti, I want to leave you with a thought. There's the silver lining to all of this, and I'll tell you what it is. When this economy totally falls out the bottom and we hit rock bottom, we're in a full-blown depression, which we are. You know what's going to happen? No one's going to give a damn about these terms. No one's going to care about them anymore. There's going to be a revolution in this country. You know that, don't you?
I think there's a revolution happening in this country, and I think that the 2020 election was just a continuation, and I think the other side, what's his face? Emmanuel said, "Don't let a good crisis go to waste," and certain people in the very deep dark left use this opportunity, and now this H.R. 1 bill, which we're going to talk about, is a way to legitimately hijack the elections and federalize elections, which is incredibly against the Constitution. It's very clearly spelled out in the Constitution that elections are the domain of the states. The states will determine their elections and how they're run. But now Nancy Pelosi et al. Wants to be able to federalize elections and control it with, A, totally eliminating voter ID. Not just saying you can't, to actually go after those states in communities that have implemented ID law, voter law, and remove it to make it illegal to ask for voter ID. This is a step into controlling. Candidates will be ordained, and I mean that in the sense picked ahead of time. I know some people take issue with the term I'm using, ordain. Ordain in sense of they're going to be pre-selected and given the blessing of the people in power, and your elections won't matter. It won't matter.
They don't matter now.
We'll come to a point. I'm not going to give up that they don't matter now, but I got to tell you something. And this is, and I'm constantly getting those emails and the texts and so forth asking for money to the GOP and so forth. And I've always maintained, folks, if you're going to write a check for political reasons, pick the candidate that most is in line with where you are and you support, and directly contribute to them. Because the GOP as a whole, where the heck were they in the 2020 election? When these states were changing the laws, they needed to be in the courts. I know they tried and they got kicked out, but they didn't try hard enough. We cannot allow the 2020, much less the 2024 election, to be handled in the same way, with mail-in voting, ballot harvesting, voter drop box. That concept of putting boxes around the city where you drop your ballots in. Are you an idiot? That is, talk about chain of custody and security. There is none. And we've had Project Veritas and these other reporters set up the cameras and surveillance of these boxes, and in the middle of the night, people coming up and dumping bags of ballots in. Where did they come from? Who are those people? It's illegal to be in possession of more than one ballot, and it's only your ballot you're supposed to be in possession of, unless you're an official transporting from a polling place to the counting place type of thing. You're not supposed to walk around with 20, 30, much less 1,000 ballots in a duffel bag. It's not right. It's illegal.
No. You know what's going to be the tipping point in this country? I'll tell you what's going to be the tipping point. When they come to take Americans' guns away from them, because that's going to be the linchpin. That's going to ignite it. And of course, when the currency melts down, which it's on its way now to hyperinflation.
Well,
so when these events unfold, Mr. Mangiacotti, then the American people will, in my opinion, rise up and strike out with such ferocity, because they may be stupid, and a lot of them are, but when you shove a frog in a pot, when you corner an animal in a corner, you keep messing with him, he is going to bite you. And that's what they're playing with. And that's going to be the end game for the United States. It's not going to end well.
You're right, Scott. And the thing about funny, you make the frog or the toad in the pot, because that's the old analogy that you put it in warm water and you boil the frog very slowly. They don't even realize that they're cooking. Well, on the gun front of it, and thank you very much for the call, Scott. Fantastic call. Is that what they're doing is they're slowly inching away at our Second Amendment, and they're attacking things like the ammunition. And now these two bills that have just recently passed in the House, and they're going after the registration, and they're going to want everybody to have to register every single firearm. In other words, the government will have a list of exactly where every firearm of the law-abiding citizen is. And that's a scary thing, because if we look back at Katrina and these other situations where you had no law, police, New Orleans police going door to door confiscating weapons just because they didn't want them in the hands of people. In other words, they want to know where every gun is. That's really none of the business of the government. And the problem here is they continually make these gun control laws, and they have no effect whatsoever on the criminal element. They, by definition, are outlaws. Therefore, they don't follow the laws anyway. So when you put these in, all you're doing is making it more difficult for the law-abiding citizen who will follow the law, because they are law-abiding citizens, to have a firearm for self-protection. And don't make any mistake about this, folks. When our founding fathers put the Second Amendment in, it had nothing to do with hunting. or fishing. That was a way of life. I mean, you didn't hunt and fish in those days. You didn't eat. Your family starved. It was just daily. That was part of life. It was put in there right after the First Amendment because they were dealing with the tyrannical monarch who punished them for speech, and the first thing that they did was to unarm the citizens of the colonies. What do you think Lexington was about and Concord was about? What do you think the Redcoats were doing? They were literally going to get the guns. They needed to disarm the citizenry to keep them under control. And the Second Amendment is there to protect the First Amendment. And if one falls, they both fall. Thank you, Scott, for the call again. Very good. 508-871-7000. Ken and Bolton, thank you for holding. You've been patient. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Joe. Picking up on, I think what we'll be talking about forever now, but a different type of story. This week, the media was focused in on Pacific Asian victims.
Yeah, it absolutely is in my notes. We are going to get to this, Ken, because I got to tell you, I'm watching Biden's address Thursday night, and all of a sudden he gets to this point about the American Asians in fear of their lives and walking down the street and the retributions, and I'm thinking, did I miss something here? I didn't realize that was a problem. I'm being facetious, of course. It's not a problem. That hasn't been happening. And as many of you know, I'm married to a Taiwanese national. We've experienced none of that. We are going to get into Joe's speech because, for one thing, not even so much as a nod to President Trump. And the fact that he was talking about how much this is what we've done and the speed, none of this, we would be nowhere near where we are with the vaccine and the distribution of the vaccine if it wasn't for President Trump and Operation Warp Speed. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that. But I'm sorry, I digressed on that because it pushed a button with me. But what were you going to say about him alluding to the fact that Asian Americans are under this incredible hostile attack within the borders?
Well, I'm just reacting to I happen to be in New Hampshire, and I happen to watch the local news, of which is only one station in the state. But I suspect most all the local would tell them the same story, and effectively showing film footage of people being beaten up. But the perpetrators are all hooded up in masks, and obviously with masks these days, it's easy to be a criminal. And they're jumping to the conclusion this is because of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Because Trump criticized Chinese.
Yeah. And rightly so. I mean he got a lot of static, Ken, right, for calling it the Wuhan virus. Now, if it wasn't, if Joe Biden had ever said, and say Trump wasn't in when this broke out, it was a Democratic president, and they referred to the Wuhan virus, there wouldn't have been a blip in the radar at all. They would have just, like we called it the Spanish flu, like we referred to everything in the past. And funny thing, Spanish flu had really nothing to do with Spain, by the way, but it got the name. And it's a Wuhan virus. It originated in Wuhan. And again, anything Orange Man says is bad. And look at Joe Biden. I mean, he needed to reverse all of these policies, which were good policies. I look at it this way, Ken. When you look at Biden and Trump, you've got Trump, which is loud and boisterous and does mean tweets and is up almost 24 hours a day, and this high-energy guy, and everybody thinks he's a buffoon and obnoxious, but his policies are solid. He created the best economy in the history of the country, basically eliminated unemployment, getting people off of welfare rolls, off of food stamps, creating those economic zones, right? Black, Latinos, Asian, women, unemployment gone. And then you got Biden, who is crafted to be. The veneer of him is Uncle Joe, good guy, right? Not boisterous. Yet, just as a side note, he threw a lot of shade on Thursday night, and this whole thing about unity and coming together is right out the window because he went after Trump. I mean, stop it, Joe. But that's how we're supposed to think of him. Yet his policies are horrible. They're horrible. They're destroying the economy. They're destroying the country. So you have boisterous, loud, with great policies and good deeds. Clueless with very damaging policies that are getting by without the spotlight they need on them. And there it is. It's the yin and yang of these two. And give me the loud, boisterous, obnoxious guy that gave me an incredible army, military, security, great stock market, good, energy independence, and basically no unemployment. Give me that guy any day of the week over what we have happening to us as a country today.
So, Joe, the story itself is trying to implicate Trump supporters for these crimes against the ethnic groups.
Yeah.
But do you know where the crimes are occurring?
I know, because I didn't know that we had these Asian assaults happening. Where are they happening?
They're occurring in San Francisco and Oakland, where we all know that there's so many Trump supporters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the story itself is absurd.
It is absurd. It is absurd.
But we live in the age when on the left, it's all about destroying our opponents, not finding constructive solutions to a problem. No, let's leverage whatever this story is into implicating our opponents and destroying them.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the Barack Obama school of community activism, right? Is you got to destroy the person. You got to pick out these people and destroy them because it's not going to work on the merits of the argument and so forth. So that is not, I mean, that's MO. That's the modus operandi. That's
and
how
he
they
learned
do it.
that from
history.
Howard and Piven.
You know?
Howard and Piven, right?
I'm sorry.
That was back 50 years ago. He learned Howard and Piven.
It's crazy. And where do you think Barack Obama got his training from?
Well, what is history? What actually happened, or what historians say now, centuries later, which is a total perversion?
Right, and that's happening across the board, Ken. I'm very, very interested to look at, and we saw this with the remote learning, right? The first thing the teachers did once they realized parents were in the room when they were doing these Zoom classes, oh, no. What did the school systems all do? Parents, you're not allowed in the room. They did not want parents witnessing what's being taught to their children, because it's not what was taught to them, not what was taught to me and probably you. And if I sat in a 5th grade or 7th grade class today, I wonder if I'd recognize the country they were talking about.
No, they'd be demonizing your country.
Yes.
And telling you how awful your heritage is.
Mm-hmm. Which has always, really irked me in the sense that, because we have dark history. Look, we are a country, right? I mean, we were born out of a revolution. We were born out of spilling blood, right? From time to time, patriots, the blood must be spilled for the seed of freedom type of thing. Yes. And we had slavery. But we're also the first country, the only country in the history of the planet that went to war with itself to end slavery. But there's no, discussion of that. Not to sound petty, but we don't get any brownie points for ending slavery.
Well, and we should be proud in this region that slavery was rejected right from the get-go.
Exactly. The northern, especially here in Massachusetts, folks.
Exactly.
Right here in Massachusetts, we never stood for that. We're against the clock, Ken. I got 20 seconds if you have another final thought.
Real quick, I come from that heritage of Anne Hutchinson. I'm actually a relative, and she fought for the religious freedom and the rights of women.
There you go.
We should be proud of that.
You should be proud of that. You've got good DNA in the bones there, Ken. Great call. Thank you very much. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up hour 1 of the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN, our affiliates, and live streaming. Don't forget, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation, and 617 297-8388 for our text line. Stick with us. I'll be back on the other side. I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester.
7 o'clock.
Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti from the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, talk radio is the immune system to the partisan, bias, political rhetoric attacking us on a daily basis. Get inoculated. The Joe Mangiacotti Show is your vaccine. Join me weekend mornings, 6 to 8.
If you were to ask any retiree in a word, they would tell you that retirement is all about income. Income in retirement is a permission slip to enjoy life. Income provides the freedom to spend money each month knowing that more will arrive next month and the month after that. As important as it is to accumulate assets for your retirement, it's equally, if not more important, to maximize the income being generated from your assets. My name is Jerry Doherty, and my radio program, Making Money Last, has been heard right here on WCRN. Well, do you know if your retirement income is as high as it could be? Are you living off less than you should be? Well, I'd like to offer you a complimentary review to answer that very question. Simply call my office at 877-772-1776. I'm conveniently located right on Route 9 in Westboro. Again, my number is 877-772-1776. Let's increase your income today.
I want to tell you what Cantiani Insurance has been able to do for me and Teddy. We stopped in to see Paul Sr. and the great staff at 318 Plantation Street. They've been handling my car and business insurance for years. Teddy was making his way around the office, and they let me know. They now offer pet insurance. For a fraction of what one visit to the vet was for Teddy, they could cover him for a whole year. I know you treat your furry family members like any other family member, and as well as I do Teddy. The professional staff at Cantiani has been providing courteous service for over 40 years with integrity and personalized service, making sure that your insurance actually protects you and your family. With 2 locations, the 318 Plantation Street in Worcester and East Douglas Insurance Agency, located at 306 Main Street in Douglas. For home, auto, business insurance, and now pet insurance, click CantianiAgency.com or call 508-791-2088. 508-791-2088.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
All right, folks. Good morning and welcome back to the second hour of the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN and our affiliates. Don't forget that we are live streaming on the TuneIn app, which means you can take us anywhere on your devices. Just punch in WCRN on TuneIn, and there we are. Telephone, tablet, whatever. Stream us in your car. Also, tell Alexa, play WCRN. She'll do that. Won't ask any questions. Just play it. We're also live streaming on my Facebook page, which is at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show on Facebook. There is a camera in studio, hey folks, but what's important is the audio is streaming. So there's several ways to listen to us easily, and I appreciate you joining us on the weekend mornings from 6 to 8, Saturday and Sunday. And I hope we bring something to the table for you. 508-871-7000. To join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Don't forget the text line is also up and running at 617-297-8388. 88 as we broadcast from the Dropbox Mattress Studios. That's right. We are now being sponsored by Dropbox Mattress in Middlesex. John Rosenfeld and his family have a little showroom right on 50 Main Street in Ashland. And go check it out, because I had to freshen up the furniture and everything with the move. And the really important piece of furniture is your bed, right? We don't just sleep in the bed. I don't know about you, but I read in bed, I write in bed, I watch the news in bed. So it's a very important piece of furniture. And I ended up buying a better mattress with a better power base, literally less than half of what I was going to spend at one of those stores with tens of thousands of square feet of overhead. Dropbox Mattress, Middlesex Studios, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. So, look, Andrew Cuomo, unless you're under a rock, right, you've been watching what's going on here. And the thing about this situation, another politician with, sexual harassment allegations. Color me surprised. It's not the point. What we're looking at here is another example of two sets of rules and laws in our society. I mean, Cuomo, not only did he have to deal with, this leadership, it's a pack of lies. I mean, it's one thing. A year ago on March 25th, right, he issues the directive about forcing COVID positive people into the nursing homes, which prior to that, there was no cases, no deaths, much less cases of COVID in these nursing homes. In other words, the nursing homes, by virtue of being what they were pretty much already bubbles. And they could have been managed very easily. And he's not the only governor that mishandled that. But what really is a problem here is he lied about it and they altered numbers. Right now, I know that I'm going to assume allegedly he's in front of a lot of this, but not all of it. Because we have his own staff members straight out telling initially what she thought was just a private conversation among Democratic leaders in the state, not realizing it was going out to everybody, that they had to lie to the federal government because of a federal investigation. So they lied about the numbers, they covered things up. And what is it with that ilk of the Democratic Party, whether it's Cuomo saying, so they died, what does it matter where they died? Or Hillary Clinton, so they're dead. Why talk about it? What are we going to do about it now? And if it wasn't for people like Janice Dean and other, including the Assemblyman Kim, right, who was bullied. And what we're doing is the layers and layers of onion are getting peeled back here, folks. For those of you that didn't know this, Andrew Cuomo is a bully. Has always been a bully. And in his telephone, press conference, we didn't get to see him. We only heard him and the operator. And then the certain reporters allowed to talk to him. He has the nerve to tell us that he's not part of that political insider group. He's not political family. The son of a 3-term governor, former attorney general, married to a Kennedy at one time. Right? He is the epitome of that political family. And he has been doing what he does, not just to women. He's been bullying and intimidating men, women. He's an equal opportunity bullier. It doesn't matter. And the latest, and this is actually ridiculous, the fact that we have to constantly say the latest victim. I saw a clip yesterday with Jen Psaki, circle back Jen, White House press secretary, referring to Cuomo and the 6 allegations. I mean, the clip wasn't even 24 hours old, and there were 7 by the time the clip got re-aired. And this is what happens, right? You have years of this behavior, and then the victims of Cuomo are intimidated. They're afraid to come out. and speak, because that's the whole point of the intimidation and the control, all about the control. We'll get into an example in a second. So it's very difficult for them to step up. But see, once somebody does, then it sends the message. It gives them a little confidence. I'm not the only one. And then there's a part of them that says, I got to speak up. I can't let her hang out there in the breeze all alone. I need to support. And nobody yet is talking about the long-term damages that this type of behavior and harassment inflicts on these women, and men for that matter too, because he does it in a different way, but he bullies them. And if I can shake the dust off of my psychology degree and be the Dr. Joe for a moment, you have a long-term effect of when you're a victim of abuse like this. And some of it is a defense mechanism where victims of sexual harassment will become less attractive. We've seen this, it happens. Children especially, right? Children who become the center of attention to an abuser will stop showering, will gain weight, will do whatever they can to become what they think is less desirable. It has long-term effects on these people. But my question is, why does it take 7 to start to rally up against somebody like Cuomo? A guy who, with less evidence on the table than there is against him, called for the resignation or the political death of many people before him. Some with nothing more than an article with some assertions in it. Right? When we look back at Cuomo, and he faces multiple allegations of sexual misconduct, as well as, the whole COVID scandal, the handling of those deaths in nursing homes. Cuomo says, hey, there is no way I resign. No way I resign. And let me tell you about that. He won't resign, right? First of all, his ego is so huge. Yeah, Donald Trump and Andrew Cuomo had a hard time both fitting their egos in the island of Manhattan. That's true. But he wants to, ask New Yorkers to wait for the results of the investigation of harassment into the claims that are being overseen by the AG, right? Letitia James's offices. He says, hey, let's the attorneys and the Attorney General's investigation, the findings, we'll go from there. A couple things. You got to remember when that was all breaking out. What did he want to do? He wanted someone from the AG's office and someone from his office to handle it. He still wanted to have control over this investigation. And the fact is, folks, every part of this investigation has to be signed off. The cost and expense of the investigation, it goes to the governor's desk, and he has to sign off. Right there's a conflict of interest that by virtue of the position he's in, which is a very powerful position, a governor in a huge state like this, he has to know exactly what's going on, and he has to sign off on the money. Just for the sake of procedural integrity, even if he doesn't resign, he should step aside and let the lieutenant governor assume those duties. It's a unique situation where the top dog in the state is the guy under investigation. And this is a Democratic-controlled legislature in New York. This is not, Republicans have no power there at all. Democrats have veto proof in the numbers in the House and the Assembly, I think they call it there. So it's not even an option. And you've got this 2 federal senators calling for it. Schumer. He's lost Schumer, AOC, Hildebrand. And the numbers keep going up. But the double standard. This is a guy who is ready to metaphorically lynch Brett Kavanaugh. Look back at some of the governor's past calls. Remember Vito Lopez? State Assemblyman? Powerful Brooklyn Democrat. Back in 2012, he was alleged to have harassed several members of his staff. Matters were, as they so often are, folks, resolved in secret settlements approved by the Speaker's office. But the governor believes he should have resigned. Cuomo's spokesman said at the time that the release of 2 reports concluding that Lopez had engaged in a pattern of harassment, Cuomo said he must not be allowed to remain in office. 2. That was it. He should be out. He says Lopez should not spend another day in office, let alone a whole month. He should resign effectively immediately, and if he does not, he must be expelled. Well, let me tell you what's going to happen with Cuomo. Cuomo will not resign as long as the numbers for impeachment aren't there. There's no reason for him to do that. Right? He still thinks he'll survive this politically. If they don't have the numbers, and I think it's 70-something they need, 77, 76, I don't have the note in front of me, but you get my point, for an impeachment to pass, and if the numbers aren't there, why would he? The only way to remove him from that office is impeachment, or he resigns, or he doesn't get reelected. So if he doesn't have the numbers, he has no legal obligation to resign. He doesn't have to. He can hold on and not seek reelection. But if he sees it on the wall, or handwriting on the wall, that, hey, we got the numbers, we're going to actually impeach you, then he'll resign because he wants to go out on his own term and resign opposed to being impeached. The last thing he wants to do is to be in that impeachment club with Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. 508-871-7000. Let me jump to the phones. Bruce in Northbridge has been waiting patiently. Good morning, Bruce. Thanks for holding on, man.
Good morning. The key to this whole thing is perception. Okay? They tried to take out Trump for doing the same thing that this guy has actually done. Okay?
Oh, what did Trump do that Cuomo did? I lost you on that
2
one.
months. For 2 months, for 2 years, they came up with woman after woman after woman.
Yeah.
That
well, Bruce, I agree only in the sense that it's a powerful person and a woman involved. But first of all of the issues with Donald Trump happened prior to him entering politics, and they were all pretty much between consenting adults and often women who it was a business transaction. And it's not the same thing. When you're the governor of the state, it's about power.
That's my point. Okay? This guy has walked around with an attitude since his father
Right.
power.
Because he was a golden child then. I mean, he was the son of a 3-term governor, right? He earned his bones, running campaigns for his dad and doing press and then becoming the attorney general. It's like for him to pretend and to try to pull this Jedi mind trick on us, I am not part of the political insider group. We're all supposed to go, he's not part of the political insider group. It's laughable. Dude, you're like the president of the political insider fan club here.
And then he tried to marry into
a Kennedy,
another dynasty.
I know.
Okay, so I don't know what he's thinking. We're living in crazy times where few people think they can changed all of our way of thinking. And they get appalled when you don't think that way. I have a nephew
Right.
that attacked me and called me ignorant for my views.
Because you didn't have
Okay.
his views, Bruce.
Okay? Yeah, he's teaching in a private school in Hardwick. Okay? So he could continue to push those thoughts.
Right.
But I really enjoy getting called a racist.
Yes. Isn't that fun being called a racist by your family members?
I'm getting called a racist, and I don't recall me showing any example
Right.
of me being racist inside their presence.
Yep.
They were doing events, they were doing activities with me throughout my life.
Mm-hmm.
Not once did I ever say that. Okay? I lived in a neighborhood in Marlboro where the first black engineer at Raytheon lived. Okay? I bring that point up because that couple and that family showed me so much. Okay?
Yeah.
And I came from a family of French Canadians that were brought up in New Brunswick and were looked down because they were French Canadians.
Exactly. You know, Bruce,
Okay.
a lot of us, right, come from, at some point, there was some biased, Irish had it right. They used to publish in the newspapers right here in New England and Boston, INNA in want ads. Irish need not apply. JFK had a copy from the old Boston Mass in there that, had INNA right in the help wanted ad to remind himself and to folks how the Irish were treated. Now, I'm not comparing the Irish to slavery, folks. I'm going to get that backlash. What I'm saying is there are almost all ethnic groups have received some kind of bias and intimidation and treatment as they assimilated into this country over the years. French Canadians, right? And if you had any, because my brother-in-law's family has Native American in them, and his mother and grandmother would talk about when they were kids, they were taught not to acknowledge it, right? Not to talk about it, to try to just pass as Anglo, pass as white, and they could, right? They could pull it off. And because then it wasn't a good thing. The Irish had their problems. The Italians everybody had their problem. None of it, I'm not comparing it. Jesus, I'm going to get tons of messages and texts. I'm not equating it to slavery, folks.
No, but what I like about what you said this morning so far, and this comes back to people being surprised in Massachusetts, okay? The KKK burnt down a church in Leominster, okay? But what you said this morning needs to be said more and more and more. This country corrects itself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? When you said that we had a civil war to correct ourselves, people don't get that.
Thank you. Exactly. And again, I'm not being cheeky about this. I'm not trying to be cute about it, but we don't get any brownie points for fixing the problem. And we're the only nation to kill each other over it.
Yep.
To literally kill brother on brother. And that's how strongly a core of people in our country knew that slavery was wrong and did something about it. And we did something about it. And that is what needs to be taught. That is what the message has to be today to our children. Is that, look, things can be bad. There can be bad people. There can be wrongs in the world. But we can fix them. And it's up to you to stand up and fix it.
This country has fixed every issue that has mattered to itself.
Right.
Very few
1964 civil rights legislation, Bruce. That changed the world. That changed our country.
Exactly.
And do you know, when we look at the 64 civil rights legislation, the word sex was added into that legislation. It was a Southern Democrat senator who wanted that to be the silver bullet. He wanted to kill the legislation, and he thought if I put the amendment in and I get the word sex in there, my fellow legislators will never allow that to go in, because in those terms, sex was gender, right? Today, we don't use the terminology has evolved, Bruce. So we don't say sex, we say gender. But at that time, in 1964, sex meant boy, girl, male, female. And he thought he could kill the legislation, but it passed to his surprise. And because of that one word in that 64 civil rights legislation, there's been more court decisions and laws made. That is where the court has applied that to women in the workplace and equal pay. They've applied it to LGBTQ. They've applied it to marriage. In other words, that one word had a domino effect that is still, we just got in June, this past June, the latest Supreme Court ruling about the 3 cases that they pulled together about the gay marriage in the rights of the survivor, right? They combined those 3 cases. So here we are, right? 60 years later almost, still having law decided on the 64 civil rights legislation. So my case in point and your point is, we as a country, if we let the system do its job, we fix what's wrong with ourselves. And that is what the Founding Fathers orchestrated in the founding papers.
I will continue to live my life like I always have, with the knowledge that I've showed people the right way how to live. But the sad fact is, you can't control evil.
No. You can't control evil, but you can take it head on, and you can defeat it, and we have defeated it. We defeated it in the Civil War. We defeated it in World War I and World War II. We fought the true fascists. We fought the Nazis. Right? We preserved freedom. And then I'm sorry?
These people have no clue what they're trying to do to themselves.
Bruce, we have schools wanting to actually teach the 1619 Project as a curriculum. The 1619 Project is an essay, and even the author of it said, this is not a curriculum, these are essays that I wrote. And it's we've got the race curriculum now. Absolutely, the educational system has never been in more danger than it is today, in that we're applying untruths. We're applying politically correctness to actual history and facts. And the 1619 Project, first of all, to say that this is when America began. No, 1619. America wasn't even a concept in 1619. We were barely, this area was barely under British rule. We had the British, the French, everybody was at that point taking a stab at the New World, right? It wasn't settled.
It all changed in 1704, really.
Yes, it was the beginning of the end of that. That's true. And it took almost it took 3/4 of a century for the country to even become a concept.
And my people in Canada were deported from their land. Okay? Their houses were burnt down, and they were separated, sent on ships by the government of Nova Scotia and the government of Massachusetts.
There you go.
But their descendants think that they're white privilege.
You got it. Hey, the history of the country is fascinating, and it's rich, and especially here in New England and Massachusetts, where it all kind of began with Britain and so forth, but we're against the clock. Bruce, awesome call. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for calling. Folks, I have to take a break here at 1:30. We'll take a break. We'll come back on the other side. 508-871-7000 for the final segment of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. I am Joe Mangiacotti. Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti here, and you might have picked up on the fact that I've recently moved and was taking the time to purge the clutter and freshen up some of the furniture and decor. And there is no better item to freshen up than your bed. That's right, your bed is the most important piece of furniture you have. After all, you spend more than a third of your life on it. I checked out the huge, once family-owned stores with tens of thousands of square feet of showroom and warehouses and movie theaters and food courts and shows and the overhead that goes with them. But then I discovered a true family-owned shop. John Rosenfeld and his son have a small showroom and warehouse right in Metro West, 50 Main Street, Ashland. John and his family are actually there in person. They do keep hours, but will meet you by appointment. That's right. John will meet you when it's convenient for you. I first bought a mattress from the big store the brothers used to own and a power base that moved the head and feet, but then I met John and checked out his showroom at 50 Main Street in Ashland and online at boxdropmiddlesex.com and ended up with a better mattress and power base that also heats and massages, all for less than half of what I was going to spend at the other place. Box Drop is a discount mattress store, and John specializes in clearance and closeouts and buys directly from the manufacturer with low overhead and just family employees, passing the savings on to you, and you can see it reflected in the price every day. Click boxdropmiddlesex.com or call John on his cell. This is his cell number, 508-579-9309. That's 508-579-9309. And find John on Facebook at boxdropmiddlesex. John loves referrals, and this is the best referral I've given so far this year. Dropboxmiddlesex.com.
To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Joe Mangiacotti.
All right, folks, welcome back to the final segment of the Joe Mangiacotti Show, the Saturday edition from the Dropbox Middlesex Mattress Studios in Westboro, Massachusetts, 508-871-7000. To join the conversation, don't forget we're live streaming on the TuneIn app and on my Facebook page at Joe Mangi Show. Joe Mangi, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. That's our tag for all the social media. But take a trip over to Facebook. There's a camera in the studio. Hey, you can probably see Teddy chilling next to me here, but the point is the audio is streaming. So there's several ways to stream us, as well as tuning in to AM 830. If you're in the western part of the state, tune in to AM 730. And you can check us out here every Saturday and Sunday from 6 to a.m. from the Dropbox Middlesex Mattress Studios, 508-871-7000. I do want to get into Joe Biden's speech, 50-somewhat days in office, and he practiced and came out to do a 20-minute speech, and the left side of the media man were just tripping over themselves. But they need to go to the phones. Joe in Milford's been waiting patiently. Hey, Joe, good morning. Thanks for listening. Thanks for holding on. What's up?
Yes, I'd like to speak about the president. It just seems to me that he's taking like a president would, he's taking the blame for things that are coming from the administration. And behind that administration is a personality, and a capable personality, and it seems to me none other than former President Obama. I feel as though there should be more focus on what's coming from him. Biden himself seems to me almost a scapegoat for the things that are happening now, one after another.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
The presidency itself, there's a shift in how it's operating. It's never been separated from actual power before, other than perhaps a couple episodes. One that comes to mind would be President Wilson at the end of his term, when he had a stroke and was not capable of functioning.
Or Reagan being shot and going under for a few hours.
But here we have an intent and a separation of actual power from the person holding the office. Actually, in Washington's farewell address, he says he had served the country and the time had come to step aside. Now, it's not explicit in there, but he may have anticipated a problem not being able to carry out the duties under maybe circumstances that, we may be seeing now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
yeah.
This president we see this. He's being used.
Wow. Joe, very perceptive, because one of the things here that I'm going to address in this segment is I watched that speech, and what you were saying to me was evident that unlike his predecessor who talked with us, and you knew that every aspect of that speech and what Trump was talking about came from him. And the speechwriters made an attempt to polish it and so forth. But one of the most difficult jobs in the Trump administration was the teleprompter guy, because he constantly went off script. But I watched President Biden, and I had an overwhelming sensation that this isn't him. Who are the young progressive staff members behind him? Who are the people that are the puppet masters here? We actually have, for the first time, his own party saying we need to democratize the launch codes here. We shouldn't really let him have his finger on that button all by himself. That's a very, it's been kind of glossed over, Joe. That's a significant position for the Democrats to take. And I agree with you that the Joe Biden does not seem that he's in full control of that office. And we have the vice president taking calls that traditionally have only been taken or done by the actual POTUS.
Right, and that's the other part of it, is the people around in that administration are being instructed by not President Biden.
No.
They're not being instructed by him.
I think this has a lot to do with the invisible hand of Barack Hussein Obama.
Well, it's being done with ability. It's being done by somebody that knows how to work this machine.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting how many executive orders? Those are coming out fast and furious because the person in charge sees that the present circumstances aren't going to last forever.
Right. So it's presidency by remote control at this point.
And the people that are fulfilling the administrative functions here, they're getting their directions from, I believe it's President Obama, and they're just willing to go along and not question anything unless, somewhere down the line we see somebody that says, I'm not going to put up with this anymore.
Right.
And, something spills out into the media.
Well, I got to tell you, Joe, and again, I've talked about this on this show, and so sorry, folks. I know that I may sound like I'm preaching to the choir. I'm repeating myself. But this is a powerful station. There is the World Wide Web that we're on and streaming. So sometimes, we do reach new ears and new minds. But you look back at the primaries and the race to the White House in 2020, and you had Kamala Harris straight out call Joe Biden two things. One, a racist, because he has a history of being on the wrong side of those issues from busing, right? He had that problem there in his comments that, if Donald Trump or a prominent conservative Republican ever said anything about the 7-Eleven stores in the jungle and Obama being the first clean, articulate black politician. I mean, can you imagine anyone but Joe Biden saying that? They would never, ever have survived their political career with that. So she called him straight out a racist in those primary debates, and then a rapist by saying she straight out believed Joe Biden's accuser and that he did the disgusting thing that accused of doing. And then she becomes his vice president. And I do not, in the spirit of Piers Morgan, believe that woman for a moment, and that she's okay with it now, and I don't believe that Joe Biden had anything to do with picking Kamala Harris as his vice president. That was chosen for him, in my opinion. Barack Obama has always had a soft spot for Kamala Harris. She was polling 0 in her own party. Remember, primary is about your own party. The other party has nothing to do with you in the primary. And she comes out to say that she wasn't getting anywhere because of racism. Well, it's only your party that decides the candidate. So you're accusing your party of being too racist to support you. She polled at 0, and now she's the sitting vice president with the man she called a rapist and a racist in the primary debates. That's fact. That's what it is. I mean, this is not, conjecture here, folks. It's what happened. How do you pick a woman or a man or person that called you those vile things during the debates and make them the person to succeed you if anything should happen? President waiting in the wings. Joe, how does that happen, man?
Well, like I said earlier, what Biden is taking the criticism.
Yeah.
And he's obviously just there as the president.
He's there. Yeah, he's there. I agree. You know what, Joe? He really is. He's the president in name. He wears the sunglasses and the bomber jacket. He was flying on Air Force One, and probably not as much as I'd like to, because I think other than the cognitive issues, which, and again, I'm not being mean-spirited, folks. I'm not. Go look at the tapes.
You don't want to forget that if he's taking it, then President Obama is still out in the background, and he's not taking it. Anything, even with the Governor Cuomo story, as important as it is, and it is, it has to be followed. That is something that will distract from this barrage of policy that's coming out of there. And Mr. Obama can stay out in the shadows. He doesn't have to get impeached.
Yeah. Well, Joe, you know what? You make a very good point, because, Cuomo was built up because during the campaign, Joe Biden was not in a position to be that guy that they built up. So by proxy, the media and the left built up Cuomo, potential running mate, next attorney general, presidential aspirations. These things are so good and so wonderful. And now they don't need Cuomo anymore, and they've got Biden in now the metaphorical White House basement, i.e. Oval Office, and they're handling him the same way. Joe, thank you very much for the call. Fantastic call. I appreciate it. 508-871-7000, folks, to join the conversation here from the Dropbox Middlesex Mattress Studios in Westboro. Joanne in North Brookfield. Good morning, dear. Thank you for holding on.
Oh, good morning, Joe. Boy, what a great show this morning. Good callers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with all you and all your callers. I especially was struck by something that you said that I have been thinking myself. The insurrection has happened, and they won. As you pointed out, the Democrats took over this country illegally in every respect. We don't even have to go over it, the fake election and everything. And now getting back, and they won. And no one is saying it. No one is pushing back on it. I don't know how we could, but but we must push back on it. And then to your last caller's point, I don't agree that Biden is the scapegoat. I mean, he's more than willing. He's the mascot, though. That's
well, Joanne, let's look back over the last year and a half, 2 years, right? When he was losing and he was in no hopes of it. He even left New Hampshire before the counts came in. Then he goes down to Carolina. All of a sudden, everything turns around. And if you remember that it was that weekend that all these phone calls allegedly were made, suspectedly from Barack Obama to, everybody dropping out. Pete Buttigieg, everybody, they all of a sudden they dropped like flies over that 4-day period, right?
Right.
And cleared the way for Joe Biden. And I maintain, my opinion, folks, and that's why you tune in here. What's my opinion? My opinion is that it was determined that Joe would be the anointing one here, that he will let him, he always wanted to be. He's tried 3 times before. His lying and plagiarism always tanked him. Right? Plus, he's never been considered, the brighter side of a senator.
Right.
So they say, well, we'll make Joe, and we'll that way we'll have him there to get what we need to get done. And when we're done with him, we're done with him. And we have Kamala Harris, who will become the first female president, not by election of directly voting her president, but by, the succession of the vice president to the presidency.
Right.
So that became the plan. So right now, Joe Biden is A, puppet, and B, a scapegoat for everything, right? He doesn't have, and I got to tell you, he doesn't, there's no control. For whatever reasons, it's a whole nother conversation why the Republicans lost the majority in the Senate. Now we also, by the way, folks, right? Well, this is just as a side thing, Joanne. Iowa, we have the Democrats trying to steal a House seat from a sitting Republican congresswoman, and now they've been able to whittle down the votes to 6 votes, and they're not going to stop till they get her out of seat. And now, of course, they would never do that with the presidency if we were to show that there was irregularities with those ballots and so forth, and Joe wasn't actually elected with the numbers that it was. If that was ever to be determined, what would we do? But right now they're trying to steal a congressional Republican seat from Iowa. I have the story. I was going to get into it. I don't want to digress too much. But yes, so here's Joe Biden, who has the House by the slimmest margin they've ever had when in control, and the Senate, because he's got Kamala Harris to break all ties. So now what's to stop them? We had these 2 gun control bills that passed that got lost in all the headlines between Cuomo, H.R. 1, and the border crisis. No one's paying attention to these bills, but we'll be talking about them probably tomorrow. But this is happening, Joanne. It's happening. This H.R. 1 bill is the progressive New World Order remake happening right in real time, folks.
Right. And we know who's pulling the strings behind the Biden puppet. It is, like you were saying, Obama and Pelosi. We have him sitting there, and he says, what do you want me to do? Should I take questions?
Do I say, and what happens?
And it's Nancy Pelosi, and she looked at him disgustedly, and then they pulled the plug on that. He asked her permission. What do you want me to do, Nancy Pelosi?
Look.
So it's Pelosi, it's the Politburo, just like in communism, is running the show. Pelosi, Obama, and then their minions. But basically, I think it's Pelosi and Obama. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. It's Pelosi. Obama is a huge behind-the-scenes puppet master going on. And if you don't get that, folks, because from just by the fact that I know in my heart, I understand that Kamala Harris is there because Barack Obama wanted her there. She was polling 0. And I don't care who you are. If somebody calls you a rapist and a racist, your first thought isn't, hey, let's make them my VP. No. Joe has no control over what's going on around him. And I've said this before, tongue in cheek, but watching him sit there with literally a stack of executive orders, going through them, signing them like he's doing a yearbook or something. I swear, if you looked at one of those things, it probably would say, hey, have a great summer, see you next year. Joe, he doesn't even know what he's signing.
No, he doesn't.
so now
and
we
he
have.
doesn't care either. Don't think he's some scapegoat. He doesn't care. He's just as evil. He's willing to be a puppet. And I mean, I think he's completely gaga. But so how
I got
anyway.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
But,
Joanne, I got to go. I got full lines. Thank you you're always a great call, and thank you for supporting the show. I appreciate tremendously. 508-871-7000. Lloyd in Worcester, thank you for holding on, man. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Joe. Listen, I've got a few points, so let me get straight to it.
Mm-hmm.
I personally believe that what the Democrats have done in this last election has undermined democracy.
Mm-hmm.
I think executive orders undermine democracy.
Yes, I agree.
Unfortunately, I'm a Republican. I shouldn't say that unfortunately. I think I am fortunate, but for conservatives, it's very unfortunate because I think a lot of our people do not believe the results of the last election, the supposed results of the last election.
And the fact that 75 million, give or take a million, feel that way, right, Lloyd? Whether or not it's true, the fact that you have half the country that vote have these feelings and this uneasiness and this speculation, and it's just not being addressed. That's not going away, Lloyd.
And you mentioned this morning, Joe, about the suitcases full of, I've heard these stories, the suitcases full of ballots and these things. And you know, it's funny.
Lloyd, there's videotape of it. It's not even a story. There is videotape of these suitcases.
Wow.
There's videotapes of people pulling up to the drop boxes, out in the middle of these cities and being stuffed with ballots at 10 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock in the morning. This isn't a conspiracy theory, folks. There's evidence. There's eyewitnesses.
I don't think it is, Joe. And you know, Joe, I had a very unfortunate conversation with my mother. She lives down in Fort Lauderdale, and she asked me the other day, and she's on the other side. She's a stone cold 1960s, liberal Democrat.
Hippie. We call them hippies, don't we, Lloyd?
Well, she's kind of like that, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
She a little grass back in her day. She went to college, whatever. But she asked me, she said, so we've stayed away from politics, but let me ask you a question. And I said to her, oh, you don't even need to ask me the question. Your question is, do I think the last election was legitimate? And I told her, no, I don't. I really don't.
What was her reaction?
She was very disappointed because she's from the Kennedy age.
Right.
I mean, she believes in democracy. I
don't.
Whoa.
Whoa. I believe in democracy. I think you believe in democracy. And the problem that we have here isn't democracy. It's when democracy is violated. It's when democracy is put into question. If you do not have voter integrity, now we got this H.R. 1 bill who literally, it removes any laws that already exist for voter ID, Lloyd. They eliminate it.
Ridiculous.
There is
you should have
no.
to show an ID and show up on election.
I got to tell you that.
For Christ's sake, it's not that difficult.
And again, I'm assuming you've listened to this show for a long time.
Well, if you got to show an ID and actually show that you're somebody, and you're not dead, and you don't live in another state.
Thank you.
Well, that's voter suppression.
Thank you. No one has been able to convincingly make an argument to me that there should not be voter ID. And the other part of it is, Lloyd, when I suggest and when I say me and other people of the same mindset say, hey, we got to purge the voter list. Purge the voter list. You are a racist. No. Purging a voter list is literally going through and making sure that everybody on that list, A, is alive.
Legitimate, yes.
B, they live where they're listed to be living, and that they have all the legal rights to vote. Right now, we're being assaulted by multiple directions here because in this H.R. 1 bill, remove these voter IDs, and they also want to automatically register illegal immigrants, issue driver's licenses, and register them to vote. This is coming from the same people who were so concerned about foreign interference in our elections and that the Russians were doing this, right? What is more direct foreign interference than allowing an illegal immigrant with no citizenship to enter our country and then participate in our electoral process? That is the epitome of foreign election interference, is it not?
I don't think there's any other country on the planet that would even consider anything like that, Joe.
Yeah.
Joe, before you let me go,
yeah.
Could I just say, Kamala Harris is the ultimate opportunist. And also, I really think this whole thing with the election, and it's heartbreaking. It hurts me.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, after this last election, I said, I'm just not even going to follow politics anymore. And politics is one of the greatest loves of my life.
Yeah.
I love sports and I love politics.
Yeah.
And damn it, what just happened here, it makes me feel really, it's heartbreaking, as I said.
No, I agree, Lloyd. Absolutely. It is heartbreaking. And politics is, I mean, I have been political since I was a kid. I used to listen to Larry Glick when I was 7, 8 years old, up at night, trying to hide the radio from my parents, knowing this is exactly what I wanted to do. I've run for office. I've run campaigns. It's my sport. Presidential elections are my Super Bowl. I get it, Lloyd. Thank you for the call. Fantastic. 508-871-7000. Let me jump to who's next. Jim in Worcester. Good morning, Jim. Thanks for holding on. I know it's been a few minutes.
Hey, good morning. I'm from the other side of the aisle, Joe, so I hope I don't get you upset. I've never...
No, Jim. That's the show, buddy. That's the show.
I know. All the times I voted, I've never shown an ID. I go up to the area where I'm supposed to vote, and they ask me for my street number and my name, and I go vote. But that's not what I called for. In regards to Mr. Biden's speech the other night, and, you weren't happy with it, he was trying to walk the fine line and not name states and all that.
Well, wait a minute. I didn't. I don't know if I said I wasn't happy with it. I said I sensed that it wasn't him. He was reading a teleprompted speech, and it felt like it was absolutely driven and written by the handlers around him. But I also was not okay with him taking a pot shot at the previous administration. This is the guy who came out in both the inauguration and the speech on Election Day talking about, coming together in unity. Well, you don't throw the other guy under the bus. You don't take a pot shot at him like that. And at no time in that speech, Jim, did he give a nod to the previous administration, Donald Trump's, in Operation Warp Speed. He talked about where we are, and this is the most incredible thing that's ever happened in the history. And it all is because of the previous administration. When he took office, there was 100 million vaccines ordered. They were already in arms of millions of Americans when that happened. And the fact that we had vaccines was all because of Operation Warp Speed. And he did nothing to acknowledge of that. That's just not okay. It's not classy. It's a lack of decorum there. He should have at least acknowledged that, Jim.
Joe, you let other people talk, and I haven't had a word. You've been expressing your points. My point was on his speech. He was trying to be nice, not like the other president when he called people Pocahontas and all that. He didn't want to come out and say certain states, but if he did like Donald Trump would have spoke that day, he could have came out and this is Joe Biden being Donald Trump. Listen, Texas, you're down here. You have major problems with your grid. You have water. You have no electricity, and you're opening up the state 100%. We don't have the virus under control. And he should have came. I would have loved to see him come out. Mississippi. You got Jackson, Mississippi, 400,000 people without water.
Jim, you're talking about, wait a minute, Jim. Jim, Joe Biden is telling us, you're telling me, look, Joe Biden is saying, if you behave. He was
trying to be nice.
He was trying to be nice, but I'm telling you, my opinion and my feeling is that he was reading a teleprompter and he was being handled and he was speaking at us, not to us. And the guy comes out to talk about the 4th of July if we behave ourselves. That was a little concerning because how out of touch is he that he thinks that nobody has gathered together in their families? Millions of people are barbecuing today in their yards across the country. It's just he's out of touch. He does not get it. He's in a bubble. He's being handled. I just think that's the way it is. Jim, and not because you're left or anything, literally the time is here. The show ends. Joe in Worcester, I can't get to you. Jim in Worcester, call back tomorrow. I'm here for 2 more hours. Good call. And yes, this is a microphone for all people, and you will always have an opportunity to speak here. That is the purpose of this show when Mike Wade started this 14 years ago, folks. But that wraps up the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN and their affiliates. Follow us at Joe Mangi Show online and all our social media tags. I'll be back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. with Jerry Doherty in studio with me. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, folks. I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester. 8 o'clock.
The following is an exclusive presentation